Hi, this is Dennis with Second Chance Tackle. We're back for the exciting conclusion of a project that we used to diagnose what the issue was in a particular reel, this one being the Penn Battle II 3000. It had a gear problem, and the first part of the gear problem was that the teeth were worn on the one side. And we kind of showed that they're flattened out here on about 4 or 5 of those teeth. We knew that gear had to be replaced, and then we looked further to see what other gears could have been damaged, and we found that this pinion gear, well, it's got the same flattened sides here. So whatever the battle was, these two pieces lost, and we checked on the gear on the back side that drives the oscillation gear, and that seemed to be okay. And we checked the oscillation gear as well, and while there was no visible indication that there was damage to this one, well, that part only cost $1 or $2, so it was worthwhile when I went to get the replacement gear, the pinion gear and the main gear, to go ahead and get that oscillation gear as well. So today we're going to show you the rebuild of this reel and how to swap out or to change all of the gears in a Penn Battle 3000 version 2, Battle 2. So let's get started. This kind of looks like a reel in a bag project at the moment. It's been broken down, and if you wanted to see how we took this apart, the best way to go ahead and do that is to look for the video that showed the problem diagnosis of this reel. So we're going to build this up piece by piece. We have our replacement parts. We have the main gear, which was by far the culprit. We have the damaged pinion gear going to be replaced. We have the bushing that goes inside the pinion gear. We have the cap nut that goes on top of the pinion gear. We have the shim washers for the main gear. And we have that crosswind gear that we had talked about. So we're going to do a complete replacement of the gears here. And if you're servicing a reel, if you've taken it apart and you're stuck, well, this is a good place to see how to get unstuck with that, because it would pick up where you would need to be in terms of putting the reel back together again. So we did work on this. Merle did a job of trying to do some initial problem diagnosis with the reel. It's been cleaned up. There's been new grease that was put on there, and we'll just kind of replicate some of that. And we're going to start by putting that the ball bearing in that belongs in the back case. Now, if you don't know this reel and you find yourself in a similar situation, the best thing to do is go right out to the internet. This one came from mysticparts.com. Get the schematic for the reel. The schematic will show you the burst diagram of the entire reel. In my case, I needed this schematic because I had to order the parts, and they have part numbers associated with that. And you can order them right on that site, mysticparts.com. But make sure you have the schematic if you don't know the reel. That way you don't make a mistake when you go to reassemble the reel. So I have that right by my side here just in case. Now I kind of know this reel, but just in case we stumble along the way, we'll be able to make certain that it all goes back the right way as it did when it came out of the factory. So I start from the back of the case and work forward, and the first piece we're going to do then is this oscillation gear. The oscillation gear needs to be greased, and it gets grease on all sides, the back side here and where the stud will ride. It gets grease onto the teeth, which are going to interact with the back side teeth of the main gear. And it gets grease on the face where the crosswind block is going to ride. Once you grease all that up, and I wear a protective glove to keep the grease off my hands, but once you grease it up, you can insert that over the stud and make sure that there's a stud for the crosswind gear, or block rather, rides low. That's because when you go to load the rest of this, if it's up high, you're going to have a hard time getting that block on and securing the axle shaft. Well, we can put that block on right now. That's not going to be a problem. All these parts have been cleaned, and now we're just going to take some grease for that crosswind block. And we're going to insert that crosswind block with this tag going under the holder here and the other one resting on the sidebar here. So you can put a little bit of grease on the side case. It's going to be the secondary slide for this. Make sure that that block goes over the stud, and again that it's resting low, because that's where you're going to have to put that in order to get the axle shaft to go in and the screw for the axle shaft to tie down. So we'll go for our main gear is the next piece in here. The main gear is an aluminum gear, I believe, and that's probably why this gear just kind of stripped out so quickly when it was fighting against the more solid brass gear, or the pinion gear. But at the end of the day, whatever the wrestling match was, it got both of those gears. So this is the best way to deal with that. And main gears are not that expensive for the Penn reels. They're only about $6 or $7. I think all the parts together with the shipping wound up just over $20, $23 maybe, something like that. All right, the main gear goes in next. And you want to make sure that you merge it with the oscillation gear behind it. A little bit of grease onto the main gear shaft. Then that main gear gets a washer, so I made sure to make that we have the washer for that. There's a little spacer washer that goes there. That kind of holds the other side of the bearing, which belongs in the side plate here. So we're going to take that bearing, and we're just going to insert that. Now these are sealed bearings, so you don't need to do anything with them, but just make sure that they're clean. And I like to put a little bit of grease onto the shaft on both sides so the inner race stays lubricated. Okay, with that then, we can go up top, and the first thing you want to do is get the replacement pinion gear. Well, that's here. So if you like these kinds of videos, I'm going to ask you to subscribe, and if you do subscribe, please hit the notification button. That way you're going to be able to see the videos that I post. I work on all kinds of reels. I work on spinning reels, ocean reels, freshwater reels. I work on bait casters, round and low profile, antique, vintage reels, and I work on the saltwater trolling reels and everything kind of under the sun, if you will. So you'll be able to see as I work on them the videos you would like to view, and you can make a selection to go watch that particular episode on my channel. That will come with a subscription, which is great, and I would encourage you to do that. All right, first bearing shield goes on. How do I know that? Well, I'm looking at the schematic, and the first piece over here says, well, you got a bearing shield washer that goes there. Next up is the first of the bearings, and if we follow down that piece, we have the anti-reverse clutch, and we have the little race that clutch rides on. So we're going to put the clutch on. You do not oil the anti-reverse clutch. That's a friction-driven mechanism. Oil compromises the friction. You'll notice that there's two sides on this. There's a steel-lipped side, and there's a Teflon side. On this reel, the Teflon side faces down. On any reel that you're removing that clutch, make sure that you note if there's a difference on one side or the other. So here's what happens. You've got a reel that will turn this way, and when it's time to reverse, well, the clutch is going to hold it. If you somehow manage to reverse that, well, you're not going to be able to turn it. And I've had people call me up and say, what's the problem here? I reassembled my reel and I can't turn my reel. Well, that's why you can't turn the reel, because the clutch was installed upside down. And it does happen an awful lot on Penn reels, so a word of caution there. All right, next one up then is the second bearing. Now there's a holder here for that bearing. And you'll notice that one side has got the full diameter for the bearing and the other one's a shorter side. Well, when you install that bearing into the cup, you'll notice that there's an indentation on the bottom. There's a maybe, I don't know, 1/16 or 1/32 of an inch. It's not flush with that bottom. That's the side that goes down on this this reel. So we're going to take that, we'll put that bearing back on, bearing assembly back on, and then we can put the whole piece into the case. Hold your main gear, kind of line it up, and just kind of set it in there. Next up then is the collar that holds that in place, and that's got 3 screws on it. You want to make sure that you can align those holes for the screws, and then find those 3 screws that you took out and get them started. And those of you that watch my channel know me and small screws well. We have a lot of fun together. I'm going to use a micro driver for this. They're small Phillips head screws. And that screw, the first one in, I don't like to tighten down all the way because you still have some swing in that collar. So what I like to do is just kind of let it float a little bit until I can get the second one as an anchor. If my hand's in the way, I apologize, but me and small pieces and trying to keep camera angles together, well, from time to time that doesn't work out as well as it should. Alright, looks like we got the second one in. Now you can tighten them down because 2 out of 3 will hold it in place and that third one should align properly. And again, if you had a question, which 3 screws, because there's 3 screws that are very similar that go into the case, well, that could be answered with that one. Alright, I think I just lost the crosswind block there. Alright, just hold that down there. Next up then on this process is to find the bushing that goes inside the axle shaft, because that's the bushing that takes up the slack in the pinion gear. This one sometimes gets omitted, I don't know why, but it gets omitted from these rebuilds, and then you get a floppy kind of an axle play, a little slop in that. Alright, I just finished putting in the little Teflon bushing for the pinion gear. Now the next piece in then is the washer that goes on top of the bearing and sits between that bearing and your rotor. Sometimes you're going to get rough play with a rotor, and it's that simple little shim washer there that is causing the problem. So make sure you put that little piece. And then we have this cap, and the cap is a sealed cap. You can't over tighten it. I like that feature on this reel. Alright, we're going to take that. That goes on next. Hand tighten. It's an 11mm nut. It goes on in a traditional clockwise tightening manner. And then we have our tie down. So find your screw holes for the tie down. I think we just lost our crosswind block again. I guess I was too early in putting that together. That's okay. Don't panic. Take your time and be patient with reel repair. It pays off in the end. Here's our tie down screw then. Now we'll come back and reset that crosswind block. Make sure again that your stud is towards the bottom. Hook the one side under the carrier here. That channel holds the stud. Now we can grab our axle shaft. Light coat of grease onto the axle shaft. Don't put too much on. You'll only squeeze it out as you put it through the pinion gear and the bushing there. Send that through the pinion gear, and then align your hole so that you can set the screw in that hole. The screw is a flathead screw, and if you had any question about that, you could go reference that on the schematic. I've seen people try to put that round head screw here in this and this and there just because they both seem to fit those slots. That would be a mistake, because what will happen is the round head of the screw, when it comes up to this main gear, is going to hit the teeth. So pay attention to the small details. It'll pay dividends in the end. Now we can put our case on. There's 3 screws for the case, 3 long screws for the case, and then there's a bump guard screw. So again, you would have taken this reel apart much like I did if you happen to purchase this as a reel in a bag project. Well, then you're kind of playing along with me in terms of how this gets done, and we're trying to coach you step by step. All right, we'll just put those 3 in. I'm going to continue to use my micro driver because I'm looking quickly. I don't see my regular Phillips head. I know it's around here somewhere, but that's okay. Probably should have laid that out before I started the video. So if you have any questions on this reel or any reel in particular, and if I can help you, maybe you're stuck on a project, maybe you're doing your repair and something just isn't lining up, or you're not seeing it the right way, if you leave that question in the comments section, I'll try to be able to help you. I can't say I've worked on every reel. I get some interesting questions. I got a question the other day on a Zebco bait casting reel that I put a video on about 3 years ago. Well, I got to be honest with you, I don't quite remember the setup on that one. I don't see those reels a lot, but I think we probably logicked it out. I'm not quite sure, but I'll give it my best if you leave that question in the comments section. And if you have a reel that needs to be repaired, like this one, if you send me a note to my email, I do repair reels by mail, and I will be happy to provide you with that repair information. All right, now we have the tie-down screw for this. Just finishing up the tightening of it. Just want to switch over here. I need another turn. Let me get the right tool here. There we go. All right, we're all done now. Very good. All right, we want to put the handle on next. So this one should run like a champ because it's got all new gears now. So whatever caused the issue before, whatever the battle was that was fought, if I can be so bold as to say a play on their name, whatever the battle was that was lost, well, it's time to go put the spool back on. See how we did. Spool, adjuster knob. Okay, so here's our old gears. New ones are inside. Let's see what we did. There you go. Beautiful operation, no issues at all, no thumps. All ready to go fishing again. So that's how you do it. That's how you replace the gearing system inside of the Penn Battle II 3000. It applies to almost all Penn battles. If you have that issue, make sure if you have a problem with the main gear where you notice that there's a problem with missing teeth, especially if they're on the back side of it, because that will chew up the oscillation gear. But on the front side of it, you need to check the pinion gear. And if the pinion gear is worn, it makes sense to just buy the 3 gears so that you have a fresh set ready to go again. And this one will run like a new reel now because, well, the most abusive parts of these reels happens to be the gears. And if you replace them all, well, you should do just fine. So I hope you've enjoyed that. I hope those of you that watched the diagnosis side got to see the completion of the project. And to those of you that maybe just wanted to learn how to service and put back together a reel, well, I hope you've found interest in that as well. To everybody who's a first responder and essential personnel, thank you for everything it is that you do. Your efforts truly are appreciated, and I'm constantly in awe of your ability to help protect us from this pandemic. So thank you all. To everybody, please stay safe, stay well, and stay watching. This is Dennis with Second Chance Tackle. Have a great day.